Check yourself. Oh, feel that healing beat. All right, heal up. Heal up. Heal up. Heal up. Healing boost. Oh, I like the sound of that. Ooh, I must have this track on repeat. Repeat. Ooh, you hear that? You hear that? Oh, let's break it. Damn. Oh, let's break it. Damn. Damn. Oh, let's break it. Break it. Break it. Break it. Break it. Damn. Let's drop the beat. 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 Let's get you healed up. Let's get you healed up. Healed up. Healed. Healed up. Yeah, let's move it, people. Let's move it, people. Yeah, let's pick it up. Lucio coming at you. Coming at you. Yeah, time to heal up. Oh, turn it up. Up. Turn it up. Turn it up. Turn it up in my headphones. My headphones. Turn it up in my headphones. Audio medic. Audio medic. Audio medic. Move to the beat. Boost. Boost. Oh, this is my jam. Time to accelerate. Alright, it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. F it up. Oh, I'm in the groove. Back in the mix. Check yourself. Oh, feel that healing beat. All right, heal up. Heal up. Heal up. Heal up. Healing boost. Oh, I like the sound of that. Ooh, I must have this track on repeat. Repeat. Ooh, you hear that? You hear that? Oh, let's break it. Damn. Oh, let's break it. Damn. Damn. Oh, let's break it. Break it. Break it. Break it. Break it. Damn. Let's drop the beat. Beat. Let's get you healed up. Let's get you healed up.
Okay, there we go. Finally, everybody, welcome to another episode of Off the Wall. It's your boy Dazzle167 once again, bringing you another episode, and we are sponsored by CGL Console Gaming League, Rogue Energy, So Sick Clothing, Jerky GG, and of course Tiebreaker. And speaking of Tiebreaker, we have the one and only coach for the Call of Duty team, Trixel. How you doing, man?
I'm super stoked to be here, man. It's a pleasure to speak.
That's awesome, man. I'm glad to have you. We have a lot to talk about. I feel like this is a good jumping off point for conversations, especially for Call of Duty stuff. We have had some Call of Duty teams, come by the show. We've had some, people who have coached and played and stuff like that. But I think this is going to be good because I think we're at a turning point with Call of Duty, right? Where everybody's been playing Black Ops and stuff like that, but now we got the Modern Warfare coming out. We got a bunch of stuff that we can talk about. But before we do that, let's talk about you specifically. And let's go back to like the beginning of your gaming experience. Let's talk about that real quick. What were some of the first games that you started playing as a gamer?
Just when I was growing up, it was all the rage with the Pokemon games, like the
Ooh,
Game
okay.
Boy Advanced. I had to get like the GameCube. I was just rushing every Pokemon game I could get my hands on. I got it. XD, Gale of Darkness, like all the. I got Pokemon Stadium back in the day too. Like it's just Pokemon galore. That was my childhood.
Nice, nice. I bet. I mean, I remember playing that too, trading Pokemon at school when you weren't supposed to bring your. Well,
Yes.
back then it was my Game Boy, and then eventually DS and stuff like that. But
Oh yeah, for sure.
yeah, for sure, that's awesome. So obviously, I mean, you eventually transitioned to Call of Duty and FPS's games. What was that transition like? What was some of the first games that you started getting into like FPS's and stuff?
It was a very like interesting transition because I was probably one of the last people at my school to actually transition to a Call of Duty game or like
Okay,
get my hands on one
right.
because I went to a Catholic school and I had family that was very like not playing gun games kind of oriented. So I kind of held off. I actually jumped into Call of Duty around the time that Modern Warfare 2 came out, and I got my hands on Modern Warfare 2 late. I got my hands on Modern Warfare first, played the heck out of that game, found out that Modern Warfare 2 came out like about a few months ago later, and that I was actually playing the not updated Call of Duty game, and then got my hands on that one, and I was off since that. Just playing online, getting as much competitive experience as I could until finally transitioning to a coaching position.
Nice, nice. So now we'll talk about your coaching specifically a little bit later because I want to go into detail about that. I think there's a special type of mentality that you have to have for somebody who wants to get into coaching, but we'll get into that in a bit. I want to focus on right now like your experience as a gamer specifically to Call of Duty. So you mentioned how you went from being kind of like the last person to get into the FPS and these type of gun games and stuff like that. But what was the transition between being starting out as an FPS player and then eventually moving on to like getting better to the point where people were like okay, now I understand I understand the game to the point where I'm relatively good, or understand the game really well at this point. What was that transition like? How did you get to that point from being somebody who was relatively didn't know any FPS to like actually being good?
So how the transition worked was first off, it started out with me just not knowing really like how to play the game. I was flipping between tactical and default with using the triggers the whole like all the time. I was just flipping back and forth from them. Just I couldn't pick which one to use. I didn't like and like I was having the trouble there. But what propelled me into actually taking it serious enough to like really get better at it was just my friends and me getting the game late. I feel actually benefited me in the long run because I had all these people around me that were warmed up in the game that knew what to do, that I could just learn off of and quickly like adapt around them and then surpass them. And basically I shifted a bunch of my friends towards like zombies and other game types that weren't as competitive because of me just my sheer
Nice.
competitiveness jumping over them. Um, and then like what helps you more when it comes to the transition is just when you fall for the game, like you really like it a lot, and you just to the point where you don't want to play any other game. Like that's like how you transition. Your transition becomes even cleaner is when you start to just put everything else to the side, and you really like an interest and find that interest in the game that you can put all your efforts and your times into that when it comes to hobbies like outside of school, outside of family time. And when you get that time with your friends to game, just jumping into that one, pushing your friends to play that one, get that opportunity to compete.
Nice. So there was a, I guess there was a point of like, and I've heard this from so many different people, right? And from across all different types of games, especially people who become really good at certain types of games. That they get started with their IRL friends, where they're like, oh, my IRL friends started playing this game. That's what they got me into and stuff like that. And then eventually they were like, I know a lot of people, and in fact, it's not that uncommon that people who play at a high level, they're like, yeah, I can't even play with my IRL friends anymore because the skill gap is so far between
Yeah.
those type
No.
of people. So you just kind of have to find people that eventually are at your skill level. So tell me this: once you became good at it, because obviously you started grinding it and doing all this stuff, what was your did you get into tournament experience? Did you start playing as a player yourself before you started coaching? What was that like for you?
Well, for me, I started playing online, like game battles, and I played UMG a bit when that was like first starting out. And I played a lot of those back in Modern Warfare, no, Modern Warfare 2. I started to get into game battles. Then I got onto my first team just around the time that Black Ops 1 was coming out. So through Call of Duty Black Ops 1, I had a friends group that I made online. They were playing more competitively and more consistently. We had kind of more of a schedulized practice play. And through that, I kind of spent as much time as I could per team to kind of take as much knowledge and information out of those players. And if I was offered, if I had a coach, I would take as much information as I could from them to learn and just progress myself, and then never leave no doors unopen. So I would always leave room for people to ask me, "Hey, did you want to come and join our team?" Just because I always wanted to see if how far I can step myself up
Right.
and get to a more competitive team that could do better, that could be less looked at as an amateur and more looked at as a pro. And so that's kind of what I did throughout those Call of Duties. And then around the time where the game was transitioning to Ghosts, I started to have internet troubles when I was moving houses and such,
Okay.
and getting like new router and everything. And so a lot of like my uh time, I guess, of me being able to spend on the game kind of was cut away, and it was starting to ruin like the vibes I had with teammates because I wasn't in the practices enough. Our subs were getting time to play and basically show up and prove they were more worth the spot than I was. So
Mm.
then I sort of started to ride my time out of the game a bit and put it to the side and focus more on school and my future that and graphic design. Actually, funny enough, we were just
Right.
talking about that
Yeah,
before
yeah,
the
we were
stream.
just talking about that.
And so I started jumping into that and seeing if I could still be a part of different organizations that way, and then use my leverage as a designer to also leverage myself into a Call of Duty coaching role because I had that experience.
Right.
And it just, yeah, and then it's made me love coaching a lot more than playing actually over time.
Nice. And I think that's the thing too, because there's a certain you have to have a certain type of personality and obviously willingness to be a coach. I see a lot of people who, and this is across all of that's across all sports, not just esports, but in general sports like as well, where you see people who are in-game leaders, like people in any type of sports or esports, where you see that how they become an in-game leader. Was that something that was attractive to you because of that? Were you the in-game leader in some of your games where you were calling out, making call outs and, doing certain things and kind of like mobilizing your team, and that's why it made it so easy for you to coach? Was it something like that?
Well, I would I would say that I was an in-game leader for a few of my teams, not all of them. But
Right.
as we know, when it comes to esports and in most, if not all, team-based esports, communication is super, super important.
Right.
So people are constantly in Call of Duty and in Overwatch, the game that you play, people are constantly calling out different things on the map, talking all the time. So having that courage and the courage to put in my points, in my opinion, at fast pace and be spontaneous with it all. Like that's stuff that I grew through that outlet of Call of Duty. I also have done sports through high school and through elementary school and outside of all that. And I've been captains of a few teams, so I got a lot of different leadership experiences that have kind of led me to become a stronger coach than what I felt like I would have been if I would have jumped into coaching maybe 1 year after playing COD
Mm.
competitively. Uh, so writing all that out and just having that time to kind of experience more competitive leadership opportunities, yeah, those have all benefited me and made it a lot easier to coach and enjoy the role itself. Also, being putting into a role where you can teach people, because that's how coaching works. Is you're teaching people or informing them on things that you're seeing through either statistics or through getting a perspective of the map that they're not seeing, because in game they're seeing their point of view.
Right.
You're informing them on things that they can do to kind of better themselves and better their gameplay or just overall better the team. And through my experiences of coaching, I've also coached sports. I coached a high school team of mine for soccer, like a year younger than mine. I
Mm-hmm.
did that before I jumped into coaching. I did that one, and that kind of gave me a bit more confidence to come back and coach because I found success there with that team doing pretty well and me receiving like an award for it through OFSA, if you're familiar with that, since we're in the same
Right.
we're in the
Right.
same region. Or no, you're not familiar with it, but in Canada we have like state/province based like sports tournaments.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And so they had one of those that recognized coaches from across like the state or
Oh, that's
province.
cool. Yeah. Yeah.
So I got one of those, and it kind of made me feel like a bit more like validated as being somebody worth like putting maybe a coach name next to it. So
Nice. Well, I mean that's really good to hear. I think it's really interesting. I think that there is definitely a type of personality for people who like to be coaches. It's a very unique and very hard position to kind of be in, because you do have to like you do have to kind of manage a bunch of players. You have to talk to them about not just in game but stuff, but you also have to help them outside game. And coaching has always been like the type of thing where you either are good at it or you're not. You could be a high level
oh,
player and be a terrible coach, and you could be a low level player and still be a great coach. Like there's so many different types of avenues for it. But I want to know more a little bit about your current team, Tiebreaker. One of the things that when I came into the organization as a streamer, they the first thing they told me was like, oh well, we're primarily like a Call of Duty team. That's our game. That's we have a team for it. I think they also had a CS:GO team, but that went their separate ways. But the Call of Duty team has always been there. Tell us about the inception of the Tiebreaker Call of Duty team and how it's grown to this point.
so it started out well, if we're looking back to the team's origins, so we had the captain that's been the captain throughout joining Tiebreaker as well as previously before we did join Tiebreaker, and his name's Jay Decimal. And he's been sort of like the main kind of player recruiter. Along he recruited me as the coach to the roster that he was building at first, and then he had his friend Torque, he had his friend, yeah, he had Torque, and we had gone through a few other players as well in the past that have been both on Tiebreaker and players that we had on and off the team before that. Essentially, though, it's been me, Jay, and Torque throughout the thick and thin, and we've always believed in building more of a family-based team. So when it came to the question of joining an organization, it's kind of tough because organizations, a lot of them out there, they tend to want to have as much control as they can on the teams that they put,
Right.
within their like organization, let them rep them. They like to control the roster. They like to control the amount of activity the team's involved in. So a lot of these things can add pressure on a team that we felt wasn't really needed for a team that we're kind of trying to grow the chemistry and the sort of like family relationship. So Tiebreaker has been a very good like home for that. For the most part, letting us kind of do what we want with the team, control the what players come in and out of the team, things like that. And from the start, they were a little bit supportive. It's kind of been growing over time. The level of support we're getting from the owners, as well as like people within the organization, as the organization grows, we're sure to find more streamers that join or more players from other game titles that like Call of Duty. We'll
Mm-hmm.
find more of them that want to kind of support us and show us a bit more love. But we've been getting a fair bit of it when we do find success. It's tough. Right now, we're in a little tough spot with a few losses under our belt that obviously like in any esport or any game you're competing in, it could be a sport in general, like out in real life, you're not gonna like losses. They're something that can break teams because we've had that before with people with egos that are hidden until there's a loss and then you see it,
Right.
and like and so you kind of have to either nip it at the butt or get them to like they're either going to leave because their ego's too big, or you're gonna attack that ego and they're going to hopefully deflate it in time that it can kind of rescue their worth on the team. I tend to go off topic a lot, guys. So all of you guys in chat that are still there, I've totally gone off topic. I even forget the question that he posed at the beginning. So
It's all right. That's all we're talking about. We're talking about like informal ways, like your team in general. So it's absolutely fine. I do want to ask you about one thing that I think, you know, I want to know about what sets your team, or what at least what do you think sets your team apart from other teams? You know, sometimes teams have personalities in esports, and I mean this could be a general type of personality where like hey, that team is known to be very aggressive, and they're fast and aggressive and they hit hard, or some teams are more calculated and they wait on their opponents, and stuff like that. What type of mentality or type of personality do you think your team has, and what do you think separates them from other teams?
So right now, with the new addition of some of our players that we've picked up within the last week, 2 weeks, we've been finding a bit more of an identity in that realm of what sort of identity our team has with its gameplay. Right now, I would say that we're trying to focus on becoming more methodical and information based. Search and destroy, one of the most classic, if not the most classic game type in Call of Duty. It's
Right.
purely information based. It's not really changed from Call of Duty to Call of Duty. It's been kept the same. You wait around, wait for your opponents to make moves, or the time to run down and force you to
Right.
make a move, and you're playing around with whatever information you can get from uh, seeing the other team make a move on the map. Somebody's alone, taking advantage of that. or taking advantage on, oh, this guy's planting the bomb right now. We just saw him duck behind that bomb. So just trying to bring some sort of informational style play that you find in Search and Destroy and apply it to the other game types that are in competitive right now, such as
Right.
Control, that's a hybrid of a respawn and Search and Destroy game type, and then Hardpoint, which has been a staple for Call of Duty competitive for the last, what, maybe three Call of Duties, I would
Right.
say. Control is a fairly new one, so that's one that I feel like we're still finding that identity the most out of the three,
Right.
in that one, whether we want to attack it as a fast-paced kill type team, or if we want to play it more methodically, slow, and whittle down the time on the clock to win the games.
Right, and that's something that I think you're right. I think that especially the game types definitely define the type of personality the teams have at times, and I definitely see what you mean about trying to like be more methodical and stuff like that in your gameplay. So let's go into a little bit more about Call of Duty as a game because we're at a point in the transition between Black Ops to eventually the new Call of Duty game, which will come out, Modern Warfare. So tell us, I'm always really interested about Call of Duty. Obviously, it's one of the biggest titles in esports and gaming. It's also, it's genre defining, right? It's one of those games that even if somebody doesn't know how to play video games, they know what a Call of Duty is. you know,
For
uh,
sure.
it's one of those games. So tell me about the transition between games and how teams in esports have adapted to it, because I feel like Call of Duty now, they even tried the battle royale mode, and they tried all that other stuff as well. I know. Like every time I say that to a Call of Duty person, they always have the same type of mentality as like, but it's interesting, right? Because they're trying
It's
to get into all
Fortnite.
that.
It's Fortnite. Fortnite did this to us. The world has been doomed since the drop of Fortnite, guys. I'm telling you. Like the apocalypse wasn't supposed to happen 2020. It was supposed to happen when Fortnite dropped, and it has been happening. It's like a slow death that we're all gonna deal with.
And see, the thing is, like, I don't hate on Fortnite as a game because I'm not a Fortnite player or anything. I play it every now and then, like whenever.
I It's the
But
community, I think, around it. I feel
right,
like I feel like it. Like, as much as a Call of Duty fan is supposed to hate. I think, well, based on when I played the most, people Call of Duty fans were supposed to hate on Halo players, and they were supposed to
right,
hate on all those people that played on Xbox, especially if you're from PlayStation like I was. You're
right.
supposed to hate on the Xbox people with their limited games, like exclusive games that had competitive scenes that none of the PlayStation players had access to playing it.
Mm-hmm.
So, or the PC people that all like were like, oh, PC games so much better.
Right, right,
CS:GO, best game out there. Like CS:GO and Halo were the two games Call of Duty people were supposed to hate on the most. But
right.
nowadays, in the newer ones with this new era of games that have been
You've
coming
all
out,
banded together.
I feel like everybody's kind of just banding together and like, okay, Fortnite, finish your World Cup and then get out of the world. I'm kidding.
But yeah,
But
no, I see what you're saying, right? Because it does take a big portion of the limelight and stuff like that. And
oh, for
what?
sure.
And when I saw that Call of Duty was kind of going that route, I was interested in the sense that I was like, I don't know what's gonna come of this. Like I don't understand. Call of Duty already has. I mean, I don't know. To me, it was always interesting because I didn't expect them to make an esports scene out of it the way Fortnite did. Because it's so hard to make an esports scene out of Fortnite or any battle royales because there's no spectator client the way there is on
Yeah.
Call of Duty type of games where
Well,
you.
that's where the devs were able to create one, but they don't have it not live stream, but they don't have it available for people to use, like content creators like
Right,
yourself
right,
that want to run a tournament. They don't have that available to you. It's just for their specific events that they host that they can use a spectator client like that.
right,
Like people have seen on their streams, which is super unfortunate because across the different BR games, they haven't really had that. I'm not too sure about PUBG. I've heard a lot of good stuff about PUBG out of the BR scenes.
right.
And they're one that I feel like they might have one, but chat or you could easily correct me on that.
Right, right. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure myself. But yeah, that I think that's always been the thing about these BR games is that they're hard to like kind of like grasp as an esport because a lot of people what they do they just go from one point of view to another and there's like 50 people in a map at one point. So
Yeah.
it's hard to kind of gauge that. But let's talk about the transitions between the Call of Duties. Okay, so we have I remember at one point when Call of Duties start changing from you know one game to another. Everybody always has like their gripes with the different games and stuff like that. What do you think the change is going to be between Black Ops to Modern Warfare? What do you expect, and what would you like to see?
Well, I personally would like to see a transition like Infinite Warfare, I think is Infinite Warfare to World War II,
Okay.
where it went from a boosting around the map, really fast paced because of like armor gear that the players had on. So in
Yeah.
this one, there's a lot of sliding involved in the movements. There's specialists that can speed people up, such as the grapple on a ruin, and uh, I just feel like a lot of that I'm not too comfortable with, because of the fact that it's just like I want it to be more closer to the games that I knew. Black Ops 1,
Right.
Black Ops 2, and Modern Warfare 3. Those are boots on the ground. Like it's more closer to the realisticness of what soldiers in the military deal with.
Right.
Which is what this game was. I believe the roots of the game's creations was to mimic or at least get as close as they could to combat relatable to military and whatnot. And that's what I would rather see that than all the um, takes on kind of futuristic stuff. And it's great because what I've seen from gameplay that's been released in this, there isn't any of that. Specialists are no longer in the game.
Mm.
Specialists I always looked at as being a sort of free kill streak everybody got. Uh, and I was never a big fan of that. I'm actually one of those people that advocates that Call of Duty should not have kill streaks in competitive anymore.
Right.
That it should all be gun based, like what do you call it? CS:GO. You're playing with your guns. You're not playing with some bombs that come from the sky.
Right.
Um, Same with Overwatch. In Overwatch, fair enough, you get ultimates that you can use, but um, you're not worrying about something that's uncontrollable, such as a like stuff coming from the sky, to
Yeah.
rain down on you. Like a missile gets shot at a giant blast radius. Like no, that's like I feel like it's not. Again, like I'm gonna relate this to in the military. You're not gonna have like people just in the middle of like a battle calling stuff in on their phone or something like that, and being able to direct it and move it and all. Like I don't know. I feel like I want it to be closer to like I'll say a Counter Strike where it's less outside help and it's more gun skill rotations, players getting into each other's heads and playing more mind games that way, not with the help of a streak that you're building.
Right.
Like the
Yeah.
reward you get is that streak you can share and show off that the casters will be like, oh my gosh, this guy's on like a 10 kill streak. That's insane, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of having to like, oh, the guy just got a chopper, the game's over.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, there's definitely I've always had that issue as well for a lot of those games. I've never been an amazing Call of Duty player, but when I did play it, it did feel that sometimes like people use that to their advantage. They would try to do like, just get those types of like special stuff to kill things, and then it would be hard for me because I'm just going in as like I have a gun, you have a gun. It's just me and you. We're just gonna try to see who's best, as opposed to like
Yeah.
just a bomb just dropped on me and I just spawned. So it's
Well, you can see how important that would be in a game of search and destroy where you're playing life for life,
right,
right? Like
right,
in a situation like that, like you're losing, you can lose a full map based off of being unfortunate and losing gunfights in game in round 1 and 2 in the search that lead the other team into having streaks. Like the the comeback possibilities become a lot become decreased significantly when streaks are in the other team's hands on something like Search and Destroy, where it's life to life.
Oh, absolutely, and I think all of that is really important. There's and I think that's is something that I think people do kind of expect from Call of Duty and CS:GO is that sort of I people who are on console will always see Call of Duty as like, okay, I want it to be like that immersion program where I feel like I'm in a team that is very tactical and not all about like wall running or like
Oh, for sure, yeah.
jetpacks or because like in the game that I play, Overwatch, it's cartoony, right? I mean, we have a
Yeah.
we have flying monkeys and
Yeah.
like so all these different like aspects of the game, it's expected because they're kind of like made like as like characters, cartoons. But in like a Call of Duty game, you don't expect that. You want a little more realism because it's expected. It's expected for it to be more like people who are very good at like tactical, actual, boots, like you said, boots on the ground. People who are doing it.
And it's super defining, I find, from game to game in players' careers too, because certain players in the competitive scene have actually not been contracted in certain Call of Duties because they're just not showing the ability to play on those boots off the ground Call of
Right,
Duties
right.
versus like their skill and all that practice that they put in, all the grind, their career that they've had so far has just been basically on the other one.
Right.
They're just having a hard time integrating. Like
Yeah.
the integration from Call of Duty to Call of Duty, it's the adaptation. It's it's what the game you have like from somebody that plays the game from uh, Black Ops to Modern Warfare or Modern Warfare to Black Ops. Like every season, you're gonna have a new game. You got to be ready to adapt to it. But it's super impactful on a lot of the players' careers too that have to deal with that adjustments. Like, can you think about it? Like, if you one Call of Duty, you have a six-figure salary, or you're making like six figures from playing in your tournaments, winning them, and streaming. And then the next one, you're relying almost solely on your streaming
Right.
because you and your fans that you made in the other one because you've fallen off because it's something that you're having a harder time adapting to. And then when we come back to boots on the ground, you're trying to get your name back out there again, and it's just a whole new hassle because people will either forget you depending on how long it's been away from boots on the ground, or people will not think you're still prime. You're kind of like you've fallen off and you've fallen off for good because you're not no longer playing with the top of the top.
Right. Right. Do you think? And here, this is more like a question about the methods that companies like Activision have, where you know do you think that that has a lot to do with the fact that they bring out Call of Duty games out so rapidly? And I say rapidly in comparison to other games. I mean, I feel like Call of Duty games come out like every 2 years, and like
It's every year a new one comes out, but yeah,
okay,
I get what you mean.
like it feels like the rapid succession of these games. The companies are looking forward to like changing them in drastic ways. Like, oh, we got to do something new. We can't. As opposed to like having one game and just continuing support of that game throughout a transition that allows people in that scene to just kind of gain notoriety and just continue that same game, as opposed to like coming out with a new one and having people adapt to a new sort of game again and again and having those games be different from each other. Because I think that's part of it, right? Like
For sure. For
there's so
sure.
much go ahead,
Especially when you got the two companies, Activision and Treyarch,
right.
because they're competing to define their game as being a better game in the whole Call of Duty series itself in general,
Yeah.
versus the other one is also doing the same thing to compete against each other.
Right.
There's not a lot of kind of holding hands, and even at one point they had another company jump in and
Right.
take the reins on a new Call of Duty that they were doing, and that I believe was Sledgehammer Games.
Right.
So you had three companies at one point all trying to make their stake and make their Call of Duty the new one, the Call of Duty to define um the whole series itself. And so with all that competition, it led people into bringing out different movement systems in the game, different streaks and rewards in game for players to get
Yeah.
from getting a bunch of kills. And it also brought out new ways to play the game. So what things you can play around it, like new game modes that came out of different games, such as Control in this Call of Duty. A while back, they introduced Hardpoint that's still being used in this one as well. There was another one that they played in combat and competitive. Blitz was in Ghosts. Uplink was in a few of the jetpack ones, and Uplink is sort of like a basketball thing where they added a
Right.
ball and you could pick it up and dunk it into a sphere or throw it into a sphere that
Right.
was at each side of the map. It was quite fun actually. I like that one a lot. Coming from a sports person outside of
Right. Right.
gaming, it was pretty interesting. It actually brought out a lot of really fun highlights in competitive because you weren't looking at just highlights that were based off of getting kills. You were now looking at highlights based off of people throwing a ball over the building and landing it into the hoop, or the not the hoop,
Right.
like basketball,
That's
into
fear.
the sphere, and just getting a sick point that ended up winning the game. Like there were games where it was like tied and they were in overtime and you could hit a buzzer beater like Kawhi Leonard
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Call of Duty. Like
Right.
nobody would think of something like that coming out of a first person shooter game for so many titles, that they'd implement something that would make it its way into competitive, that would be less shoot that would be not shot dependent in or bomb dependent in objective, but instead a ball dependent
Right.
objective. So it was very interesting. It was a great fresh thing to add in, that made boots off the ground fun. But yeah, like just the game itself. Every time you play from Call of Duty to Call of Duty, there's gonna be differences. You have to adjust to that, and uh, and again, I've kind of gotten off topic.
Yeah, no, but it's fine because I think that's part of it. I think that like okay, so and I'm trying to think of like different comparisons, but like there's tons of games where you have a one title and that title just expands on different games that they want to use and they'll have an esport in that one mode, but they'll
Hmm.
still have like a bunch of different other game modes in it that people can play and have fun and stuff like that. I mean, for us in Overwatch, people have the competitive mode where you have the objective based stuff, but people also have arcade modes where they can do a bunch of different stuff and have like
Oh, for
capture the
sure.
flag and
Yeah.
a bunch of different modes that aren't competitive and
Yeah.
aren't part of the esports scene. And I feel like Call of Duty kind of misses the mark in the sense that like they don't feel like they don't feel the need to just take one title and just expand on it and just they just have the one title, they put it out, and then they're like, oh well, we want to do something different, we have to come up with a new title. Like
Yeah.
it seems kind of, I don't know, it seems kind of productive for me, but I do think that it kind of also, like you said, kind of hurts the esports scene in the sense that people tend to adapt to things and stuff like that. So obviously, you're looking as a coach, you're looking for people who are can be adaptive and stuff like that. When you're at this moment, now that you have I mean, people obviously have an idea of what is going to be in modern warfare and stuff like that. But what are you looking for to transition between your players between games? What's probably the most important thing that you want to kind of like drill in your team, that like you need to remember this once the new game's out, we need to be like this. What are some of the things that you kind of like instill in your team so that they can be able to adapt?
First, probably the most important thing that a team needs is the listening
Right.
and the ability to communicate with each other ideas and thoughts and opinions with the confidence and not being kind of like scared of other people kind of shooting down their opinions or shooting down their ideas.
Right.
Um, because when you are adapting to a new Call of Duty, the whole team's going to be adapting to the whole new Call of Duty. People will be switching roles potentially because they're starting to like playing with one gun versus another gun. Because now, um, not all Call of Duties have the same fundamental meta in terms of guns that are
Right.
being used. Not all of them run two ARs and one SMG as the like meta or a sniper in search and destroy. Some of them have had more than one SMG and one AR. So you kind of have to look at people either changing up their playstyle around the new gun that they're playing in the new game, the way the new maps are flowing. So all of that is going to be sort of then going to be following the communication and being able to talk to each other and kind of educate. Everybody should be able to educate each other freely, and that's what I'm looking forward to my team understanding and following through with. And then of course you want to have teams keep their chemistry and build it as well during the off season of about I believe the off season should start around September October, where teams start to challenge themselves in leagues that pop up in some of the older Call of Duties. So just working on that chemistry, the willingness to learn and listen and try new things out, understanding that if there is failure, that it comes and it's educational, and that it comes and it's not defining.
Right, right, absolutely. I want to move on to a different topic. We're going to be rounding out the show in a bit, but before we go, I want to talk about CGL Console Gaming League because
Oh
you
yeah.
know we're being the show is sponsored by them. I'm one of their sponsored streamers, and one of the first things that I brought to Tiebreaker was, "Hey guys, Console Gaming League is out there. You guys should definitely compete because I feel
Yeah,
like this
100%.
as an opportunity to compete and I think the Console Gaming League has had numerous success in different titles, right? They've done Overwatch, they've done Mortal Kombat, and they've also done like Apex as well as Call of Duty. And they've found success in all those different titles. And I kind of want to see Call of Duty break out as well. I've seen already tournaments being run for them, and the fact that they have this prize pool available and all these different great things that are going to be available for them, I'm really excited. Also, the divisions they have, the NA and EU and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What are you looking forward to? Because obviously this is going to be for Black Ops so far because that's the game that's out right now. So are you looking forward to doing anything specific for CGL? What are you looking at different people who are competitors on there? Do you recognize anybody? What's the game plan going into some of the tournaments hosted by CGL?
So pretty much when I looked at the tournament and when I heard about it, I was super stoked because I love what you guys are doing with Overwatch and giving the voice, the consoles a voice in that community that is basically shunning them for the most part, and people saying that PC competitive is just
Right.
the 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 tip of the iceberg, or
Right.
if not like all of it. But for the CGL for Call of Duty, I'm really excited to see what kind of competitive format you guys are going to use. So if it's going to continue to use a veto system like a lot of the other leagues are using, or if you guys are
Mm,
going to set the maps per round already up prior to it. I'm
right.
also looking forward to seeing how the streaming side of it works, because not all leagues have streams or a stream schedule for teams to follow.
Right.
And that's something that I look forward to because that gives other teams a voice or a platform. It helps them give a platform to show some success that a team could have, or um, it could show to some fans if the team loses, it gives them still the opportunity to cheer for their team. So the streaming side definitely is a super important one for me. But when it comes down probably to the details, I'm going to be looking forward to seeing what teams really enlist and enroll in it. Because if you guys can find and attract some teams, some pretty competitive teams out there, then I think um, that's going to be super, super helpful for the foundation of CGL moving into the next Call of Duty, because I'm not gonna define the CGL league that you guys set up for, or that they set up for Black Ops 4. I'm not going to let that league or that season define what you
Right.
guys are going to do into the next Call of Duty.
Hmm.
But I'm just looking forward to just seeing how you guys kind of run with it, and then how you guys look to improve on your first league going into, and then the next Call of Duty, like how you guys take adaptions and people's feedbacks and things like that. Like I don't know. I'm super stoked to have Tiebreaker's team join the CGL league whenever signups start, and all that. I'm pretty sure I'm should be jumping into that soon, because I think signups already started.
Yes, I believe so. Don't quote me on this, but I have the flyer somewhere in my computer, and I don't remember exactly where it is.
Mhm.
But yeah, I believe so. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great opportunity for teams that aren't as big as some of the bigger Call of Duty teams to be able to be represented and have a platform and a voice. And it gives a lot of things. It allows you to watch the streams and kind of like see from the caster's perspective. Okay, maybe we'll do a VOD review about what we could have done better, what we could have, that's a great tool to use a lot of times. Just the opportunity to have your team promoted on a match. And for example, I was talking to some Mortal Kombat players yesterday, and some of the people who were more established and pros in that scene, they were talking about the CGL coming through and having their own tournaments. And they were saying how everybody knew each other kind of from the pro teams, the pro players and everything. And then all of a sudden, there was this guy who just joined just for the CGL stuff, and he just destroyed everybody. And it just came as a big surprise from all these pro players, and he almost instantly became a pro overnight because he went onto Xbox and PlayStation and dominated both tournaments. And people were like, where did this guy come from? All these
Yeah,
pros
for
were
sure.
like, and so I'm really excited to see something like that, where Tiebreaker comes in and people are like, wow, Tiebreaker, and then they just come in and like start doing really well, and maybe not people didn't even notice that would happen.
Yeah, Cinderella stories. Yeah, everybody loves a great
Absolutely.
Cinderella story, and you never know where one can show up. And definitely, like what you just said, like those Cinderella moments are incredible. And if a league has something like that that can go viral and push their name out there more, and attract enough attention that they can get like investors, things like that, to help just improve that quality of the league, like there's just there's just so much more potential in something like that, especially when
Absolutely.
giving all these people a shot and a chance to put themselves out there.
Absolutely. So shout out to Koizi from Mortal Kombat, who just went overnight, just like was amazing from one tournament to the other. It was like, who the hell is this guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. So shout outs to him. He's doing great things. I look forward to watching him. Which, by the way, shameless plug, but CGO today and tomorrow will be having their console combat tournament. So if you're interested in watching that, check those out. Those are always really hyped to watch, and they're really fun to see. And we'll probably be able
Oh,
to see Koizi in some of those, so
I
that'll
love
be
me some
interesting.
fighting games, man.
Oh,
I've
absolutely.
been I've been loving the Super Smash Brothers scene for so
Oh
long.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Man, that's the other game like Call of Duty that actually adapts from game to game, because they come out
Right,
with new titles. So
right.
that's just another one. All the fighting games actually have an adaptation system in them when you change from title to title. So
Yes.
those are definitely fun games to watch. For
Absolutely.
sure.
I look forward to watching all of those. And listen, I look forward to watching your Call of Duty team compete in these tournaments. I'll be definitely rooting everybody on. And listen, I hope the best for your team. I hope the best for all the players in the future. And obviously, we'll see what happens. I'll be rooting for you in the Twitch chat for sure. Watching,
Thanks, man.
no
Thanks,
problem.
man. 100%. Our whole team loves support from people. Our guys, they're nobody on our team, I would say, has an ego. Nobody on our team hates one another. a lot of players on our team, like I can't go into too much personal stuff, but they have a lot of things in life that kind of set them back and push them down, and they're motivational to me, and I would love to to have them at some point tell you guys maybe some of their stories, or if you guys could just check
Absolutely.
them out, they'll tell you they'd love to tell you guys a bit of their story. But yeah, just definitely don't overlook Tiebreaker at all.
Absolutely.
We will be looking to make a name for ourselves. It's either this lineup under the Tiebreaker's name, or follow me and follow the team that I have wherever it goes. Like we're passionate, and passion brings positivity, and positivity brings results.
Absolutely. So we're gonna be able to do that. We're gonna go ahead and stop the show around here. We're gonna raid somebody from the community, so we'll be able
Oh,
to do that as well. I'm not sure if we have. I'm not sure if we
love me
have
a good
any.
raid.
I'm not sure if we have anybody from Tiebreaker that is streaming right now, but we'll find somebody from the CGO community and maybe probably the Overwatch community to raid. So we'll be able to raid somebody
For
there.
sure.
I see
Shout out,
actually.
shout out to Toronto Defiant.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Love you boys. I understand we didn't make it to the playoffs this time, but there's always another season.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Definitely keep that in mind. And guys, we're gonna go ahead and raid Basic PMA. He's one of the casters for the CGL. Go show him some love. He's playing Overwatch right now. He's a very good guy and a fellow Lucia player like I am. So give him some love and check him out.
Give your healers love. Give your healers love in Overwatch,
Definitely,
please,
definitely.
please.
So listen, thank you so much for being on the show. I look forward to again watching your team and rooting you guys on and seeing how you guys perform in the league. And we'll have you or anybody else as from the team on the show, and we'll have you once again. And who knows, maybe after the league's over, we can talk about thoughts and meta and all of that for Call of Duty.
Oh, bro, you don't even want me to open up my book now.
No problem, dude. No
I got
doubt,
all
no
that.
doubt.
I got all of that.
All right, cool, man. Well, listen, we're gonna go ahead and raid Basic PMA. Thank you, everybody, for stopping by. Thank you for being on the show again, and we'll come back next week. Tune in to the show, twitch.tv/Dazzle167, twitter.com/Dazzle167. 4trixal, do you have anywhere that they can catch
uh,
you?
Oh, definitely. Right here. I don't know if you can see right here. Getting my finger there. Oh,
Yeah,
right
yeah,
there. You
yeah.
see that name right there? 4trixal. That's on all socials. So you're gonna find me on Twitch, and you're gonna find me on Twitter for that one. Definitely go check me out there, and check out Tiebreaker when you get the opportunity. Tiebreaker GG on Twitter. Thank you so much, guys, for coming in. I love you guys all so much, that popped in, and for all the support you give. My boy Dazzle here, he deserves all of it. And we're going to send all of you guys over to support somebody else now.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, guys. That's the end of the show. Tune into Twitter for the next guest of on next episode of Off the Wall. Until then, see you guys later. Bye.
Yo, awesome.
All right, it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.